Welcome, villagers, to the village hidden in the stories. I'm your guide, All Kage, the creator and author of all the what-if stories you see on this channel, with your awesome suggestions, of course. I write, edit, and produce every story you hear, so if you're wondering who made it, it's me. I hope you enjoy today's video. Be sure to leave your what-if ideas in the comments and subscribe if you're new. Today's story is, What If Naruto Was in the Owl House, Part 4. Sorry it took so long, but I will still be continuing this series before we start on other things. Before we dive in, shout out time. Thanks so much to everyone who comments, keep them coming. If you'd like to support the channel, check out my Patreon, link in the description. Now, without further ado, let's jump into this what if. Part 4, Rivals to Friends. Daylight hit Bonesboro different today, well, different even for Bonesboro. The usual lavender haze was thinner, the sky leaning toward a pale blue that almost looked human. Probably some demon's bad gas poisoning the atmosphere again, or a misfired spell. Naruto didn't care enough to guess, he was focused on one thing. "Hey, open up, Morton," Ida shouted, banging on the sealed panel of the shop with the exact tone that promised destruction if ignored. Naruto lay stretched across the top of Ida's head, ears pinned back, eyes sharp. She was trying to hide the signs of her curse bubbling up under her skin, but he could feel her pulse jump every few seconds. This was one of the very few times he wasn't lazy about anything, because when Ida's curse acted up, it actually mattered. Luz and King stood nearby, looking tense and trying not to panic. Ida waited for an answer from behind the panel, steam practically building in her shoulders. Finally a muffled voice called back, "I'll be right there, just, give me a minute." "Maybe." Ida did a half-sigh half-growl, shoulders shaking. She could feel the curse climbing, and without her elixir she was on borrowed time. Naruto hopped down to the wooden stoop, planting himself right in front of her. "No need to break the door down, Ida," he drawled, voice still dry but sharper than usual. "Not right now, at least. Better for you to see him before you start shouting." Ida gave him an irritated stare. "You realize I'm not in the best mood right now, right?" "Yes," Naruto nodded without flinching, "and that's why I'm telling you to chill out. Last time this happened, your magic usage made everything worse. Quite possibly your emotions do the same, meaning you shouldn't freak out in public." Ida paused, then exhaled, long and annoyed. "You're right, I just need to relax, as long as Morton has what I need, we'll be fine." Naruto nodded but didn't take his eyes off her. He refused to let this get out of control again. He never wanted to see her become that monster if he could help prevent it. His focus snapped when the ground rumbled. Heavy footsteps, demons screamed and darted away. A witch cloaked in red dragged a huge demon down the street, tied to a wooden cart, the rope straining as the beast snarled. Naruto narrowed his eyes at it, sizing it up, strong, but not smart. He could have taken it. The fact hunters got it in the first place said enough. "Whoa," Luz breathed, stepping closer to Naruto and Ida with this fascinated sparkle in her eyes. "That is one ominous parade." Ida snorted, "That's no parade." "Those are demon hunters," Naruto added with a yawn, though his eyes stayed sharp. The demon thrashed against the restraints. Two more red-cloaked witches, with shadowed faces, dug their heels in and yanked the ropes tighter. When it lunged to bite one of them, it got punched in the temple, getting knocked out flat on the cart. "Dangerous nomads," Naruto continued, unimpressed. "Or at least that's the story they tell themselves." Ida crossed her arms. "They track down the strongest beasts and sell them, same reason Naruto doesn't go flashing his 9 tails. They're persistent," Naruto admitted. "Annoying too, hard to shake at first. But once you figure them out, they're easy." Luz only honed in on the part that mattered to her. "You have 9 tails?" Naruto groaned. "Yes Luz, I have 9 tails, you think the wanted posters are for show? Well, you always say, 9-tailed demon fox is just a title." "It is," he muttered, then froze as Luz reached over and stroked his current single tail. Are the others as fluffy as this one? Naruto shut his eyes. Not the point is, hunters are around, Ida's about to go owl beast, and we really need that elixir. He turned and slammed an enlarged fox paw against the panel hard enough to make it shake. Morton, open the door. Luz winced, King covered his ears, Ida actually looked impressed. Naruto growled low. This guy is taking too long, and we don't have time. Sorry Ida, Morton said as he opened the panel, revealing both himself and the shop through the window. A witch with tan skin, a scrawny form, long brown hair, and sharp gray eyes. Ida had apparently known the man for a while. He was the guy who had supplied all of her elixir for years. Long before King or Naruto knew the truth, this man had single-handedly been keeping the curse at bay. Now that Naruto knew, he was at least glad this guy was helping. Morton glanced at Naruto, then at Ida, speaking as he settled weakly onto the counter, like he was genuinely sick. I was up all night poison tasting, he said simply. And for some reason, I don't feel great. Ida pulled out one of her many empty bottles, getting Morton's attention. I'm all out of my juice, do you still have my shipment? Oh gee, Morton gasped softly, taking the empty glass. Let me see what I can do, he muttered before ducking down into his shop. Naruto's and Ida's eyes stayed locked on Morton, but Luz turned away, something else catching her attention. The rumble of the demon hunter's cart sounded again as they continued down the road, and behind it, walking side by side, were Willow and Gus, both looking dejected. Luz didn't notice at first, she just smiled and moved toward her friends. But when she got closer, the mood was impossible to miss. Hey guys, wait, Gus's frown was deep, almost dramatic. He noticed Luz first, and immediately kept his gaze slightly away, like he didn't want her to see him upset. Willow's frown was smaller, softer, but when she saw Luz, she replaced it with a fragile, practiced smile. It made Luz raise an eyebrow. What's wrong? Then her voice dropped, serious and protective. Who hurt my babies? Even though Luz was still technically new to the Boiling Isles, she'd already decided she'd fight for the friends she'd made here. Willow sighed, but that fake smile didn't break. It's nothing, she said flatly, hurt simmering beneath it, obvious to Luz. Gus spoke next. If by nothing you mean Amity and her group of elites, he said with air quotes, gesturing toward Amity and a few other witches. Luz found them in the crowd, recognizable by their hex-side uniforms and cowls. The first, red-accented uniform, long ash-colored hair in a puff bun, animal track. The second, blue illusion track, glasses, brunette. The third, gold emperor's track, peach skin, dark purple hair, third eye on her temple. And finally, Amity, in purple, abomination track, with that familiar posture, chin up, proud, elite. The group looked uniform, polished, superior, exactly how Amity always projected herself. And though they didn't sneer, there was a very clear vibe of exclusivity and belonging. Willow continued, now unable to keep the bitterness fully hidden. Amity's just having a moonlight conjuring, she muttered. That's about it, it's nothing serious, nothing anyone needs to make a big deal about. Except the fact she didn't invite you, Gus snapped, seeming more angry for Willow than for himself, and she keeps posting about it on her Penstagram account. Gus' frown tightened as he conjured a blue spell circle. A glowing scroll unfurled, then hardened like thin glass, showing what was basically the witch equivalent of a phone screen. A list appeared, invitations, with the top names being Amity Blight, Scara, Boscha, Cat, and more. High-achieving witches, track leaders, which Luz guessed were sort of like class representatives. But Willow and Gus, nowhere on the form. We weren't even considered, Gus said dramatically. I may not be the exact top of my class, but Willow is great at plant magic. It's not that serious, Willow insisted, trying to downplay it, but Luz could clearly see the disappointment beneath her voice. Luz turned to Gus, how do you know it's Amity deciding this stuff? Gus paused, caught, it just makes sense, he mumbled. Luz let it drop. What even is a moonlight conjuring? Willow's expression shifted, hopeful and hurt all at once. It only comes once a year. On that one night, you spend it at someone's house, telling stories, playing games. Like a slumber party, Luz said, almost eager. Willow actually smiled, just a little. Yeah, then you bring something to life using the magic enhanced by the moon. She showed Luz the book, the moon illustrated in swirling blues and purples. Luz glanced up, maybe that explained why the sky felt softer today. Still sounds pretty fun, Luz said. Gus and I have never been to one, Willow admitted finally, her smile dropping. You need at least 3 people just to use the moon's magic that night. Something gentle settled in Luz's chest. This wasn't like missing a party or not getting invited to a hangout, this was deeper. Willow and Gus didn't just want to be included, they wanted to feel like they belonged. They wanted to try something special that other witches got to experience every year, something they'd never been given a chance at. Luz felt a quiet determination kindle in her, warm, steady. If this matters to them, then I'll help them make it happen. We're doing this together, I'll make sure tonight is something they remember. Luz clapped her hands together, leaning toward Willow and Gus with a decisive nod. Look, Willow said you need 3 people, right? That's us. You, me, Gus, that's all you need, and honestly, she shrugged with a smirk, we function way better than whatever Amity thinks counts as an elite circle. I mean, Naruto literally humbled her entire reputation a few days ago. Willow blinked, remembering that fact. Luz opened her mouth, then froze as shadows fell over them. Amity's group had approached. They didn't even look at Luz. The girl with the 3 eyes stepped forward, smug dripping off her voice like honey gone sour. Oh Willow, poor thing, you didn't actually think you'd be invited, did you? Willow stiffened. Amity said nothing, her hands were folded behind her back, expression neutral, almost unreadable. Then the girl with the bun snorted in laughter, the illusion-track brunette elbowed her, giggling. The 3-eyed one smirked like she'd just crushed a bug. They walked right past, not sparing Willow a glance. Only after they were gone, Willow's head dropped, and the ground responded. Tiny thorned vine tendrils cracked through the stone, like her feelings couldn't stay buried. One snapped upward near Luz's ankle, reflex kicked in, Luz slapped it away before it reached her. Her heartbeat jumped. Willow was upset, enough to lose control. Luz inhaled. She stepped forward, voice gentling, Willow, don't let them get to you, seriously. Those girls don't get to decide who matters. Willow didn't look up, just stared at the ground like it insulted her personally. And we have enough people, Luz pushed on. So let's do our own moonlight conjuring. Gus gasped, eyes huge, you serious? Then he broke into a grin. That's been on my bucket list forever, right under, getting an actual human bucket. Luz stared at him, that's very specific. But she smiled. Willow lifted her head a bit, hope flickering, but where would we even do it? I mean, I'd ask my parents, but, Gus shook his head, same, if I told mine I wanted a moon ritual at midnight with friends, they'd assume we were summoning something carnivorous. Luz thought for a moment, then snapped her fingers, the owl house, Ida won't mind. I don't think. Willow's eyes brightened, really, Luz, thank you. And Luz felt that warm little spark, making her stand a little taller. Of course, I just need to clear it with her first. She turned, jogging back to Ida and Naruto. Morton had just closed the shop panel again, Ida looking irritated but composed. Naruto talking low beside her. She quickly remembered why they were here in the first place. Elixir, Luz blurted. Did he have your shipment? Are we heading back to the house? Ida groaned, holding up an empty bottle. No shipment, won't be here till next week. Luz's stomach dropped, she noticed it again, faint feathers creeping on Ida's forearms, the curse working faster than last time. But Ida smirked suddenly, but Morton did tell me where I can get more, the night market. Shady, probably illegal, lots of opportunities to steal or get stabbed, so naturally, that's where I'll be. Luz blinked, I can come with you. Nope, Ida cut in, quick, stay at the house. With Naruto, I need you there. Someone's gotta keep an eye out. She scooped up King, and King can help me spot pickpockets, and be a pickpocket. King folded his arms proudly, I have delicate criminal hands. Naruto hopped up to Luz's shoulder, don't be loud. Luz hesitated, then turned back to Ida, so, since you'll be out anyway, maybe Willow and Gus could come over for a moonlight conjuring? No, Ida deadpanned instantly, I won't be nearby to supervise, and while I trust Naruto to handle any violent threats, moonlight conjurings are dumb. They're baby magic, I don't know why witches your age still do them. With that, she turned and walked off toward the direction of the crawling forest road, King still tucked under her arm like a loaf. Luz and Naruto stood there, silence. Finally Naruto exhaled, tough break. Luz rubbed her temples, muttering, wondering how to break this to them. And right on cue, Willow and Gus hurried over. What did she say? Willow asked, hopeful eyes searching Luz's face. Luz froze. She remembered their excitement, their hope, their first conjuring. She didn't want to see that crushed. She opened her mouth, and Naruto spoke first, voice casual as wind. She said yes, as soon as Ida leaves the house, you three are good to do your conjuring thing. Willow gasped, hand over her mouth, eyes shining. Gus jumped up and down like a caffeinated lemur. Oh, this is amazing, we're actually doing it. Gus practically exploded with joy, babbling about decorations and plans, Willow's smile coming back full and bright, and for a moment Luz just let herself feel the relief. Her friends were happy again, that was what mattered. Still, a small part of her couldn't help noticing how quickly Naruto had stepped in, again. Before she even opened her mouth, it wasn't anger, just the faint sting of being answered for her. But she pushed that feeling aside, tonight was about them. Not her. The day shifted close to noon, the moon rising in the night, as the blue sky dimmed to black. In the owl house Ida prepared herself for her outing, a new cloak on, as Naruto and Luz sat expectingly on the couch. Naruto, you're in charge while I'm out, Ida called, readjusting her cloak for the 5th time. Make sure Hooty doesn't get into trouble. Hooty's face, stretched from the door through an open window, like a weird long brown noodle that spoke, I don't need a babysitter, I'm a big boy house. Naruto didn't acknowledge Hooty, only giving Ida a short nod. Luz looked at him for a moment, then to Ida. So how long are you gonna be? Luz asked, concern forming in her eyes. I mean, do you even think you can last the whole time without turning into the owl beast? Naruto looked to Ida, slight concern forming on his face, but he didn't say anything, most likely the fact Ida was ordering him to stay at the owl house. Luz knew if Naruto had the choice he would be with Ida and King when they went to the night market. Ida just shook her head, to think my own apprentice doesn't trust me, anyway I'm sure I'll be fine, I've been surviving for as long as I can remember. Luz gave an unsure nod, then blinked. What about King, where is he? Ida smirked, he's right here, she said with a chuckle. Ida opened her cloak, revealing King, strapped to a pink baby carrier on Ida's chest sound asleep, snoring and dangling. Luz immediately tried her best not to pass out from how cute the scene was. Just seeing his little arms, conked out, dangling freely, made her cue. Ida's smirk widened, he just can't handle being weightless. Ida's look turned to one similar to Luz after a moment. Check this out, Ida called. She swayed back and forth, making King's limbs sway with her, showing just how deep King was in his sleep. That's so cute, Luz whisper shouted, getting closer to Ida just to play with King's small little demon legs. Ida chuckled, before turning serious, now, we must go, no need to keep burning precious moonlight. Luz watched Ida step outside, and then pause, like she remembered something. Ida turned back to them. Oh, one more thing, you and Naruto better not mess up my house with your little moon magic. Luz froze, she didn't even have time to be guilty before Ida kept going, it's obvious. Teenagers don't follow rules, plus your friends hiding on the ceiling was a dead giveaway. She pointed upward. Willow and Gus, having ditched their Hexside uniforms for casual clothes, fell straight from the rafters and onto the floor with a loud wooden thud. Ugh! That and Naruto told me, Ida finished casually. Luza's eyes snapped to Naruto, betrayed. Ida lifted a hand in a lazy farewell. Anyway, see you later, don't destroy my house, bye ee. She hopped onto her staff and shot off into the darkening sky. The door shut behind her. Silence. Then Luz slowly turned on her heel toward Naruto. You told her? Naruto didn't even flinch. Yes. Why? He yawned like this entire thing wasn't dramatic. Because if you three were planning a moon magic slumber party, Ida was gonna figure it out anyway. I just told her ahead of time. Luz grumbled, cheeks puffing, annoyed, but even as she marched back and forth, she knew he was right. Of course he was right, that wasn't the point. I could have handled it myself, she insisted, maybe more defensively than she meant to. Naruto didn't comment, just stretched out on the couch, tail coming up to drape over his head like a furry sleeping tent. The moon's already reaching its highest point, he muttered beneath it. You should start. Willow stepped up and lightly took Luza's shoulder. He's right, let's not waste it. She smiled softly, then lifted a huge bowl of snacks. I brought everything I could. Gus hurried over with his own input, but wait, didn't Naruto say Ida was okay with it, so why wouldn't she know? Luz cut him off fast. Haha, yep, totally doesn't matter now, let's go conjure moons. She practically hurled herself toward the living room. They set up. Willow positioned candles with flickers of blue fire glow, dimming the house lights until the only real source of illumination was the silver stream of moonlight coming through the window. The three of them sat cross-legged in a circle on the floor. Naruto lounged on the couch nearby, looking half asleep, half guarding. Willow took the lead, something Luz immediately noticed. Her voice had a confidence to it, quiet at first, but growing with every word. Okay, first we need something to animate. She reached into her bag, and pulled out a delicate flowering plant, thin branches twisting upward in an elegant spiral, pink petals glowing almost fluorescent under the moon. Luz blinked in awe. Willow always picked beauty in places Luz didn't think to look. Gus placed something down next to it, we have this muscular little dude. He proudly held out a badly proportioned action figure, biceps bigger than his head, clearly some stolen human trinket. Willow stared at it, that painfully polite smile came out. That's not really what I meant by beautiful. But Gus gave her that sad puppy plea face, and Willow cracked. Okay, fine, we'll animate the buff guy. Luz snickered. They set the action figure in the center of their circle. Now we join hands, Willow said, and make a connection with the doll. Figurine, Gus corrected. Luz tilted her head. How do you know all this anyway? Willow flushed, rubbing the back of her neck. Read a lot about this stuff. I've studied moonlight conjurings for a long time. She shut her eyes. Gus followed. Luz scrambled to catch up. Then the two began. Moonlight we call we sing. Moonlight take this chance. Moonlight tie the string. Moonlight start the dance. Luz tried to follow, got maybe 4 of the words right. But somehow, it didn't matter. Blue light spiraled up, first around their hands, then up their arms, then their whole bodies, connecting them, binding them in swirling moonglow. The air outside changed, birds cried out, leaves rattled, like the forest itself felt the magic. Naruto sat up straight, ears perked. The light stretched into a sphere, then suddenly, snapped. Darkness slammed back, candles extinguished, the room went silent, nothing, just 3 teenagers sitting in the dark staring at a dead action figure. Naruto spoke first. Was something supposed to happen? Then a hoot so loud it rattled Luz's teeth. The entire house lurched, the floor kicking underneath them. She couldn't even stand, it was like being inside an earthquake. Branches cracked outside, birds exploded into the sky. Something was moving the owl house, lifting it. Willow screamed, Gus grabbed Luz's sleeve, Naruto dug claws into the couch, and then, everything went vertical. Then sideways, then weightless, and when it stopped, they all hit the floor like sacks of flour. Luza's head rang like someone smacked her brain with a frying pan. She lay on the floor for a moment, staring into darkness. What just happened? She asked no one in particular. Willow pushed herself upright, shaking splinters out of her hair and blinking wildly into the shadows. I don't know, she answered. Naruto staggered up, but in his human form, holding his head like he'd just been shaken awake from a nightmare. It felt like the whole house just hiccuped, he hissed. Gus groaned next, pushing up from the floor while clutching his stomach. I don't think it was that, he muttered, voice shaky. Willow perked up at the ceiling. I think the magic didn't hit the doll. Gus blinked, the buff guy, then what did it hit? Willow swallowed, then pointed around them. I think we enchanted the house. Silence. Then Naruto exhaled through his nose, long and pained. There goes my nap. Before Luz could even process that, a low phantom groaning came from outside the walls. Then with a low crack, the house lurched again, but instead of rising, it surged forward. Luz's breath caught, she scrambled to the door and shoved it open, and nearly fell right off. She stared into darkness, except it wasn't a cliff. It was open air, moonlit forest below. The ground had moved. No, the house had. Willow and Gus piled out behind her. All three stared forward, as the owl house grew massive wooden bird-like legs tipped with talons, right out of the foundation and took another step, into the forest. No way, Luz whispered. Naruto burst past them. In fox form now, fur bristling, teeth bared, ready, but then froze. Because he had no idea what he was supposed to bite or punch. Then, behind them the door slammed shut. Hootie's owl face bulged from the wood, manic and glowing. By the power of the moon, I have risen, hoot hoot. Luz gaped, oh no. Hootie, you have to stop. Luz ran towards the door, hoping to stop whatever was happening. But he didn't respond. Luz paused, then waved a hand in front of him. Hootie, she drawled questioningly. She watched his glowing blue eyes, and suddenly Gus was next to her. I think he is in some sort of a trance. Naruto tensed. Perfect, a possessed worm controlling the house, love that. The owl house stomped forward between two trees. The movement jolted the roof, making Luz and Gus lose their footing. They tipped toward the edge of the porch, but Willow and Luz grabbed Gus's arms. They strained, don't drop me. We're not trying to. Their grip slipped, and Luz's other hand snapped out, grabbing Willow's wrist. For one suspended moment, the three of them were linked by one strain of grip, and the moonlight around them glowed. Naruto reacted instantly. Several tails snapped from his back, grabbing all three and dragging them back onto stable flooring. But Luz's eyes lifted, and widened, because directly in front of them, the owl house was about to step off the ridge. Straight into a fatal plunge. Her heart lurched. Luz didn't think, she just yelled, Hootie, stop. And like a dog obeying command, the house froze, silence settled again. They all slowly crept back onto the uprooted patch of ground beneath them, now a floating platform tethered to the house. Then Gus finally broke it. How did you do that? Luz slowly let go of Willow and Gus, breathing unevenly. Her mind snapped back to the glow the moment hands connected and the same pull of moon magic. She grabbed Willow's hand. Give me your hand, Gus, take Willow's. Gus and Willow obeyed, still confused. The moment their palms met, blue light rippled out of them again. The house obeyed. It took 3 careful steps back away from the ridge, each footfall shaking the entire forest floor, until they stood back on thick earth. The house came to a full stop. Willow gasped, eyes shining. Gus let out a breath. We're controlling the house. Willow giggled, unable to contain the joy rising in her. Oh Titans, we are literally doing a moonlight conjuring. But then Gus turned serious. What do we do now? Everyone turned to Naruto. He transformed back into his human form in one smooth motion, standing in the center of their circle. "You should put Hooty back in his foundation," he said firmly. "Because I'm not dealing with cranky Ida." Willow visibly deflated. "But this is our first conjuring." Gus nodded vigorously, "And we already messed up the spell, but we fixed it, and now we get to move a house. This is epic." Naruto frowned, "And catastrophic." Willow's voice wavered, "But, this is the first time I've gotten to do one with friends. I don't want it to end yet." That hit Luz in the chest, hard. She looked between them. Naruto was right, Ida would kill them. This could go badly, very badly. But Willow's eyes were hopeful. Gus was trembling with excitement, and her heart wasn't scared. She stepped forward, chin up, face set. "We can handle ourselves," she said. It wasn't rude, it wasn't reckless, it was steady. Naruto's eyes flicked toward her, sharp, reading her like he always did. "So you want to get into trouble with Ida?" he asked. "No," Luz replied, then smiled. "We want to do this, and we'll bring Hooty, and the house, back before the moon sets." That last part, Willow had explained earlier, meant the magic's end. Naruto stared at her a long moment, searching, measuring, then sighed. He shifted back into fox form, and vaulted up onto the roof tiles, curling up in a nest of his tails. Permission given. Luz let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. She'd never disagreed with him before. She turned to her friends. Willow was blinking in surprise. Gus looked like he'd just witnessed a duel between gods. Luz grinned. "Don't worry, Naruto just hates when something messes with his nap time. We've got this." Willow beamed. Gus nodded fiercely. And for the first time that night, Luz didn't feel like someone who needed protection. She felt like someone who could stand beside her friends. The moment they were ready, the whole owl house jolted like it had just mainlined pure sugar. The group made the owl house shoot off through Bonesborough like a drunken parade float with opinions. Hooty listened to all their commands, which eventually turned mental in the excitement. Willow made her excitement known, using her knowledge of the conjuring to better control Hooty, pulling off different kinds of movements for hours. Luz had never seen Willow take command like this. It wasn't the shy plant kid who second-guessed herself every 10 seconds. No, the moonlight had hit her like a switch, and suddenly she was fearless, confident, loud even. Gus hung onto his friends for dear life, hair whipping backward, screaming and laughing at the same time. The house sprinted past stunned Bonesborough citizens, skidding over a bridge, clipping a kiosk selling ratworm pastries, then hopping a fence so cleanly Luz was pretty sure Hooty winked as they passed. And Luz should have been thrilled. She was thrilled. But she kept catching herself glancing back at the roof, where Naruto had sprawled out the second the house woke up, hands behind his head, eyes shut, expression relaxed. Sleeping, or pretending to sleep, she couldn't tell. Every time the house jolted, she half expected him to react, or sit up, or complain, or something. He didn't. He just let the chaos roll under him like none of it required him anymore. And that made something twist inside her chest. Because she'd told him off earlier, harder than she meant to. Because she didn't want him stepping in again. Because she wanted to prove she could handle things, that she didn't need him. But now, watching him so detached from all this, Luz felt weird. A mix of guilt and irritation and something she didn't have a real word for. Maybe he was giving her space, maybe too much space. She shook the thought out of her head as Willow suddenly pointed ahead. There she is, Boss-cha, three-eyed girl from before, the one that would be at Amity's own moonlight conjuring, thoroughly annoyed, zoomed through the trees on her abomination wool contraption. But she didn't notice them. Willow, fueled entirely by excitement and moonlight, declared, "Follow her, we need to show Amity what real conjuring looks like." Luz blinked at the fiery determination on her friend's face. She'd never seen Willow like this, borderline feral, in a motivated plant nerd way. It was honestly kind of cool. The owl house stamped after Bosca's fading trail. Knocking branches aside, shaking the earth under their feet. They pushed through the last line of trees, and the world opened into a clearing. A huge mansion sat at the top of the hill, framed by moonlight, looking like it wanted to intimidate the entire landscape on principle. Black windows, sharp angles, perfectly trimmed hedges that somehow looked judgmental. A metal gate stretched across the entrance, the letters welded into the iron in fancy, self-important script, Blight Manor. Gus let out a breath. We're almost there, even though we, sort of lost Boss Cha. Willow didn't care even a little. I can't wait to rub our moonlight conjuring right in Amity's face. Her grin stretched wide, eyes glittering with mischief. Luz chuckled, and then instinctively looked back again. Naruto still lay on the roof, still perfectly still, still possibly asleep, or maybe watching with that weird awareness he always had, even with his eyes closed. She narrowed her eyes for a second, trying to read him, then gave up and turned back to her friends with a smirk, planting herself beside Gus and Willow as the house barreled forward toward the gate. The owl house stomped closer, closer, just a few feet away from crashing through the blight gate like a battering ram, when suddenly the air split. A hard, sharp whip tore overhead, followed by the violent thunk of metal piercing earth. The house screeched to a stop. All three kids froze, all three smiles evaporated at once. A rope, thick, coarse, tightened with brutal force, snapped taut over the owl house's frame. They followed the rope down the slope of the hill, finding its end buried deep into the dirt by a massive metal rod. And the other end was worse. A cart sat half-hidden in the trees to the left. Mounted on top of it was a giant crossbow, its limbs still vibrating from the shot. And standing behind it, cloaked in red, face buried in shadows, was a witch dressed just like the hunters Luz had seen earlier that day. Then he loaded another harpoon, shot it, and with another thunk, the owl house was secured by another rope holding it down. The cloaked figure stood after that, held up his hand, and like they were reacting to a signal, several other red-cloaked hunters emerged all around them, 20 in total, completely surrounding the clearing. Luz's pulse spiked. The owl house was trapped. The lead hunter stomped the ground, a shockwave cracked the air, then he launched himself skyward and landed on the rail right in front of Luz. He stayed crouched, then lifted his head, one glowing eye, an eye patch, a jagged scar cutting across his face. Knock knock. Luz's eyes widened. Instinctively, she shielded Willow and Gus, but it was useless. The man traced a green spell circle, and energy shot out, solidifying into ropes that bound the three of them tightly together. They fell flat, sitting up only because the ropes were so tight. Luz glared at him as fiercely as she could. Moments later, they were pulled into the owl house, still tied, forced to sit quietly as the hunters prepared their next moves. The house itself was dragged down, secured to a large cart, Hooty trapped inside. Luz kicked at the door, desperation spilling from her. Everything had happened too fast. They were trapped in Ida's home, and she barely had time to think about the mess they were in. Naruto, he was still outside, asleep, hopefully. If he was awake, he could take down these hunters in a heartbeat. Hooty, Naruto, you gotta wake up, kick these guys' asses already. She shouted. The muffled response came from Hooty, still mounted on the door even in his trance. If you want this to end as you say, three must hold hands. It's the only way. Oi, no mi habalasi, hey, don't talk to me like that, Luz shouted, kicking again, hoping Naruto would hear. But he didn't, he wasn't coming. She realized, with a sinking weight in her chest, how little she knew about Naruto. Had he really abandoned them, or was he just pretending to sleep? Luz shook her head, she didn't have time to think. Willow's voice pulled her back. Luz, I don't think we're getting saved. Luz saw the hurt in Willow's eyes, and it crushed her. The entire capture had drained every ounce of her confidence. She was about to move to comfort her friend, but the house jerked violently, throwing them forward. Luz hit the floor face first, Willow and Gus dangling against her back, the ropes cutting into their skin. The door slammed open with a bang, and the hunter who had tied them grinned as he dragged them outside, barely exerting himself. They landed on grass, bruised but alive, near the edge of the forest, the cliff dropping into darkness below. Hunters swarmed around, preparing carts, testing the owl house. The main hunter laughed, landing from the owl house, dust rising around him. The man turned to the hunters behind him, a crooked smirk pulling at the scar running down his cheek. "All right boys, prep the house, we're tearing it down before sundown." He jabbed a thumb at the owl house. "And bag the house demon, should sell well as exotic meat." Luz's hands flew up. Hootie is not food, he's Hootie. The man didn't even look at her. Another hunter stepped forward, tapping the handle of his blade. "Boss, what about the worms?" He tilted his head toward Luz, Willow, and Gus. The main hunter paused, then slowly turned, letting the full slash of his scar catch the light, throw them off the cliff. The questioning hunter snorted, "Knew you'd say that." He grabbed Luz while two others seized Willow and Gus. Luz twisted. Willow dug her heels into the dirt. Gus screamed, "I do not consent to being thrown off and ag." But the hunters were strong, stronger than they looked, dragging the three like they weighed nothing. They were hauled across the clearing toward the cliff edge, still close enough to see the owl house but way too far for anyone inside to hear them. The lead hunter planted a boot near the drop. Gus threw his hand up in pure panic. Wait, just, hold on." The hunter actually paused. Gus puffed out his chest dramatically. "Is this really what you want your legacy to be, hurling children off cliffs? Do you want to be known as that one guy who failed basic morals?" The hunter blinked. "Yes, throwing kids off cliffs is what I've wanted to do since I was a boy." He shrugged. "I was a weird kid." Luz, Willow, and Gus didn't get another second before getting shoved. Their screams ripped through the air as they fell, wind slamming against their faces, the ocean roaring below. It felt like forever, like gravity was personally insulting them, before it stopped. A thick branch caught their bindings, yanking them to a brutal, breath-stealing halt. They dangled above the violent ocean, waves smashing against jagged rocks with almost obnoxious enthusiasm, like the sea was excited to kill them. "Oh Titan," Gus gasped, kicking wildly. "We're gonna die, and I had so many cool things left to do." Luz's breath hitched. Hootie was in danger, they were probably going to die. And if they didn't, Ida was absolutely going to yell until their ears fell off. But worst of all, Naruto, she whispered. He wasn't here, he hadn't come, he hadn't helped. The hurt hit first, sharp and unexpected, then anger, twisting tight in her chest, then guilt. Had she pushed him away, had what she said earlier actually made him stop trying, had she messed up that badly? Silence stretched too long. Finally, Willow breathed out, "If we're really gonna die here, should say sorry. This was my idea, Naruto was right, we should have stayed put until the conjuring finished." Luz snapped her head toward her, "No Willow, it wasn't just you, we all wanted the joyride. And I'm the one who yelled at Naruto. I didn't listen, I didn't even try." She winced. "If anyone messed up, it's me." She searched Willow's face. "But I got to say, what happened to your confidence? You knew everything about the conjuring, you were beaming just an hour ago." Gus flailed his bound feet. "Hello, life-threatening situation, priorities?" "Ignored." Willow inhaled shakily. "My confidence was real. But underneath, I just wanted to prove to Amity that I'm a powerful witch." Luz frowned. "Willow, you are powerful, why would you need to prove anything to her? She ignores us every chance she gets." Willow's eyes softened with old hurt, "Because, we used to be friends." Luz blinked. "When we were kids, me and Amity played together every day, we promised we'd grow strong together. But when I struggled with abominations, she abandoned me, just left, and Willow swallowed. I wanted to show her I'm strong too." Luz shook her head fiercely. "Willow, that's ridiculous. You are strong, you helped bring a whole house to life. You almost flattened me the day we met. Besides Ida, you're the strongest witch I know." She paused. No offense, Gus. Gus inhaled deeply. You know what, I could be offended, but honestly, valid. Luz smiled a little, then continued softly, you don't need to prove anything to her. As she said it, something clicked. Oh man, Luz's breath hitched, I've been doing the same thing. The confession poured out. When I got mad at Naruto for telling Ida, when he stepped in earlier like he always does, I was trying to prove I didn't need him. And when I told him off, her stomach twisted. I basically shoved him away, maybe that's why he didn't help. She felt sick realizing it. But we don't need to prove ourselves, she whispered. Not like this. Out of nowhere, the branch dipped, bending dangerously, all three screamed again. But it held, for now. Gus stared down, I really don't think we're gonna last much longer. Willow steadied herself, Luz watched determination grow in her eyes, bright, fierce, real. We'll be fine, Willow said, confident again. She twisted her wrist, slipping it free from the bindings with a grunt. I just need to touch the branch. She stretched toward the wood, carefully, slowly, but fast enough not to waste time. The branch creaked louder, wind whipped their hair, Luz held her breath. Willow's fingers trembled inches away. Then, she grabbed it. Cutting back to the cliffside, the hunters were still tugging on Hootie's stretched-out face. Grunts, yelps, and one guy screaming "Why is it stretching?" echoed through the trees. Up on the owl house rooftop, Naruto, in fox form, blinked awake from his first nap that night. He yawned, shook his fur out, and stared down at the ridiculous scene. Below, the hunter who shoved the kids earlier puffed himself up. Yeah, they tried to fight back. Nearly got me, but you know, I handled it. The lead hunter finally turned his head fully toward him. You handled children, he said flatly. They're teenagers with half-finished training, don't embarrass yourself. He waved a hand dismissively. Don't act like you survived a war, you shoved them off a cliff. The man's mouth snapped shut instantly. Then a massive shadow spread over them. Willow, Luz, and Gus hovered above on a spiraling mass of vines and thorns, held up by a giant leaf like a floating throne. Green light circled their feet as the ground below them roared to life. Willow's eyes glowed bright, pulsing green. Yeah, she said, voice steady. We're kids, doesn't mean we aren't powerful witches. Luz grinned, Gus cupped his hands around his mouth. Fear us, adults, fear us. Willow slammed her hands forward. Dozens of giant plant tendrils erupted from the earth, whipping toward the hunters. The hunters fought back, but barely. One swung a staff, only for vines to wrap his legs and yank him into a bush. Another launched a magical net that Willow's vines immediately used to burrito wrap him. A third fired off a scattershot spell, only for the vines to part politely, then body slam him. Gus leaned over to Luz. I feel like the vines are being a little rough with them. They deserve it, Luz shot back. Meanwhile, the lead hunter's patience finally snapped. What in the Titan's name are you all doing? He barked. They're children, maybe one of them strong, but you're hunters. His squad didn't rally, they continued losing in increasingly humiliating ways. He dragged a hand down his scar. This is what I get for recruiting volunteers. He summoned a glowing spell circle beneath his boots, green lightning exploded outward. Tendrils were blasted back, giving his team room to breathe. A second, larger spell circle formed above him, lightning condensed into a storming mass. He hurled it straight at Willow's forest of magic. The impact sent Luz, Willow, and Gus crashing to the ground. They groaned, stunned, and then the lead hunter was already looming over them, fist raised, lightning swirling. Until an orange tail grabbed his arm mid-strike and yanked him into the air. The kids looked up. Naruto stood in the middle of the clearing. Human again. Hands in his pockets, expression anything but calm. His eyes, usually warm red, glowed sharper, angrier, before softening when he saw they were alive. Around him, total destruction, fox tails lashed out from his back and from the ground itself. Hundreds of Narutos swarmed the remaining hunters, all grinning, all causing carnage without effort. Luz was the first to move. She ran toward him, not scared, not angry, but shaken. "Naruto, I'm sorry," she blurted. "I shouldn't have talked to you like that, I shouldn't have acted like we didn't need you, I didn't mean to make you feel unwanted or like we didn't care what you do for us." She swallowed, rambling. "I wasn't mad at you. I was mad at the situation and I took it out on you and I shouldn't have." Naruto blinked at her, confused at first, then relaxed into his usual calm. "What are you talking about?" Luz blinked, stunned. "Weren't you mad, or something, 'cause of the way I spoke to you?" Naruto rose an eyebrow. "I just fell asleep deeper than I meant to," he said simply. "Haven't been napping as much, I was tired." He shrugged. "When you said you could handle it, I figured it was a good time to get some actual rest." And just like that, everything clicked for Luz. Her breath stuttered, she felt stupid for assuming the worst. "So you weren't ignoring us," she whispered. Naruto tilted his head. "Why would I ignore you?" Luz stared at him, and then the fury hit. You absolute, lazy fox, I was worried sick, I thought you left us because your feelings were hurt, or worse." She kept going until Naruto gently pulled her into a hug. She froze. Luz had never seen him initiate something like that. His voice was low. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left you in that situation, I should have kept my guard up." Her anger melted. She understood then, when he woke up and saw the hunters attacking them, he must have panicked. That was why the tails and clones were out of control. She poked his chest and muttered, flustered, "This doesn't suit you, stop being serious, it's weird." Willow and Gus watched with matching smirks. "Uhu," Willow sing-songed. Gus nudged her, "They grow up so fast." "Gus," Luz's face erupted red. Naruto barely reacted, just calmly reabsorbing every tail until they dissolved into motes of hair drifting off on the wind. The army of Narutos poofed out one by one, leaving the field silent again. At last he said, "You held your own for a long time." He pointed at the moon as it dipped low. "You were right, you could handle it, you just got a little sidetracked." He offered Luz a calm, half-hearted, almost dismissive good job. But Luz lit up. From Naruto, that was like a medal ceremony. Then she noticed the moon's position and gasped. "Oh man, we have to get the owl house back before Ida gets home." Naruto jumped, transformed midair into a fox, and dropped into her hood like a weighted scarf. You can handle that," he mumbled, already half asleep. Willow and Gus stared. Gus whispered, "How does he fall asleep this fast?" "Skill," Willow whispered back. The three scrambled toward Hooty, gathering what moonlight remained. Holding hands again, they pushed the glowing house through Bones' burrow, sprinting against the fading blue light before the conjuring ended. They made it. Hooty thudded back into his usual spot just as the moon lost its glow. Inside, they finally collapsed, exhausted and triumphant. Once the owl house thudded back into its rightful place and the blue moonlight finally faded, Luz let herself sink onto the floor. Everything hit her at once, the rush, the fear, the insane drop off the cliff, Willow tearing through hunters like a force of nature. We actually did that, she thought, chest still buzzing. Willow's power still glowed in her memory, bright and unstoppable. Gus not freezing up even once, and Luz herself, she didn't flail or panic the whole way, she helped, she mattered. Even without Naruto awake, even without someone stepping in for her, she held her ground. The thought made her sit a little straighter. She wasn't useless, she wasn't helpless. And she didn't need to prove anything anymore to anyone, not Naruto, not Willow, not Amity, not herself. But she still wanted to learn. She still wanted magic. Ida taught her about witch culture. King taught her about demons. But when she asked about glyphs, Ida had no clue, zero. Not even a maybe. Try not blowing yourself up. Luz glanced at Naruto sleeping in her hood, tail flicking with each snore. He always seemed like he understood magic in his own weird way. Maybe he could help her figure things out. Not because she needed saving, but because she wanted guidance this time. Wanted to grow the right way. She nudged his cheek. "Hey Naruto, wake up for a sec." He cracked one eye open with a tired, annoyed fox blink. "There's something I want to ask you," she said softly. "And, I promise I won't push your help away again." Luz held up the light glyph between her fingers, its glow soft and steady. "I've been learning things, Ida stuff, king stuff, but no one knows what these glyphs are." She took a breath. "I just want to understand this, and I think you can help, seeing as they looked kinda similar to your seals." Her voice steadied. "Will you teach me?" Time skip. Naruto is curled up in Luz's hood again, but unlike his usual lazy dozing, he's hunched over a small sketchbook, smaller than normal so Luz doesn't notice when he hides inside her hoodie like it's a portable den. His paw drags across the paper with intense focus. The sketch is a circle, but not a simple one, each curve made of intertwined sealing kanji, layered and elegant, the kind Jiraiya once drilled into him back before he escaped Konoha. Naruto pauses, shifting one arm into a human limb just long enough to look at the seal etched onto his skin, the one that allowed him to use his strange hybrid magic in the first place. Upgrading this was going to be a pain. He knew how to do it, that wasn't the problem. The problem was the amount of steps, the planning, the clones, the effort. Determination sucks sometimes. Still, if he wanted to remove the old limiters, sharpen his control, and stop being almost outpaced by a little abomination prodigy, this was the price. He flips the page and draws fast. Pages fill with arrays most shinobi never see in their whole lives, each kanji flowing into the next like a living language. When he finally stops, he's staring at a full-body rework, layered seals running across the silhouette of a bipedal figure. 3 rings on each arm instead of 1. Chains of kanji linking from back to palms. A swirling core seal between his shoulder blades. Matching arrays on his legs and chest. All connected by chakra, if he could still channel it after years of letting fox magic take the lead. If the designs were correct, and they always were, this would blow past every limit he'd placed on himself. But he'd need materials, rare ones. Before he can think further, the bottom of the hood taps twice. "Hey Naruto, wake up." Naruto growls, tiny, muffled, offended, but drags himself out into daylight, leaving the sketchbook behind. He collapses onto Luz's shoulder in his chibi fox form, small head, tiny paws, oversized poofy white-tipped tail. He refuses to acknowledge how red his face feels under the fur. "What is it?" he mutters. Luz freezes, staring at him like she's witnessing divine cuteness. "I needed help with the books," she finally says, motioning to the massive, unstable stack nearly as tall as her. Naruto glances at it, then at the giant library behind them. Marble walls, decorative pillars, eldritch architecture hugging the skyline. He immediately rejects the request. "Nope, that's Ida's job, or your job because Ida dumped it on you. I only tagged along, doesn't mean I'm doing chores." "You may be cute," Luz grunts as the books wobble, "but you're a lazy little fox, and they're falling." Naruto's tail shoots out like a whip, growing large enough to catch the entire stack before it can collapse. It drops them neatly back into Luz's arms. He huffs, "Let's just get inside." The library is enormous, rows upon rows of towering shelves, floating platforms, whispering books, ancient tomes humming like they're alive. Naruto wrinkles his nose. He hates how libraries made him feel small. They don't make it 5 seconds before one of Luz's overdue books slipped out the stack with a green glow. It flew toward the check-in circle, literally. A red energy circle that floated in the air, to check all the books that came in. And when the book passed through the ring, it beeped, before giving an audible shout of late. One by one, every book followed. By the time Luz stumbled to the desk, all her returns had been absorbed by the circle except one, halted midair by a firm hand. A witch in layered robes stared down at the book with soul-deep resignation. Coffee stains, grass stains, a faint bite mark. He didn't even look up. Ida's? Naruto hopped onto the counter with a small nod. Hey Bill. Bill's eyes sharpened in that long-suffering way only someone who routinely dealt with Ida Clawthorne could manage. Do you know how many of her books I've had to magically reconstruct this week alone? He asked. 3, Naruto guessed. 7, Bill corrected. One of them was somehow set on fire and frozen at the same time. Luz winced. She's creative. She's a menace, Bill sighed, then glanced at Naruto. But she does send you to smooth things over, so I'll extend her tab. Again, not for her, for you. Naruto shrugged. I'll take what I can get. Bill handed Luz a tiny parchment slip, your receipt. Also, be out before lunch. Wailing Star tonight. We're closing early, things get messy. Luz didn't even get a chance to ask about it, before Naruto hopped back to her shoulder and flicked his tail. You heard the man. Once they walked deeper inside, Luz finally blurted, I didn't know you were a library person. Naruto scoffed, I'm not, but sometimes I need them. When Ida isn't sending me on some stupid errand or I'm not guarding the house, I come here. Luz squints at him, so why are you here today? Ida didn't give you a secret mission. Nah, this one's for me, he says, then adds, softer, and a little for you. Luz blinked, for me? Naruto hesitated, then explained. Ever since my fight with Amity, something clicked. She pushed me, she was a challenge. Not life or death like most of my challenges, a real challenger. Haven't had a real magical challenge in years. It made me want to sharpen myself a bit. Luz tilts her head. But aren't you, like, the strongest demon in the Isles? I never said that, that's Ida's strongest witch thing. He shrugs. I'm just a very strong nine-tailed fox, but Amity, she's different. Luz tries not to react, tries very hard. But she couldn't help but raise an annoyed brow. So, you respect her? Yeah, her precision, her control, she made me think during a fight, it's annoying. His tail twitched, but kind of exciting. She clears her throat, okay, but what does that have to do with the library? Naruto pulls out the sketchbook, Luz instantly groans. You really need to stop stuffing things in there, my hood already smells like you. He ignores her, I want to remake my seals, the whole system. I can get stronger, change how I use magic. But I need certain materials, so I'm checking references, no more relying on half-broken seals I made when I was 10. Naruto flipped open his sketchbook to the intricate body seal diagram. Luz's jaw dropped, this looks like if geometry did push-ups. Exactly. He closed the notebook. Then, pointedly, and this place might help you too, with glyphs. Luz's eyes widen. Sure, knowing you can make variations of the glyph by slightly changing how you draw them like we learned yesterday is fine, but we barely know anything else. Even if it's only been a few days since you've asked me to help, this is the place to be to figure glyphs out. Luz's expression softens, you really thought about this more than I did. Yeah, he mutters. You asked me to help, so I did. She gently scratches under his chin, thanks, buddy. Naruto shoves her hand away with a paw, weird. A few moments later, they were already scouring the shelves, pulling down books for Naruto's seals while Luz practically vibrated with excitement. She kept whisper-rambling about how the Demon Realm's library had all the best parts of a human one and even more. Whatever that meant. By the time Naruto's stack of books was as tall as his fox form, they finally took a break. They hadn't found anything on glyphs, not even a footnote, so that part of the mission was a bust. The two settled at a desk, Naruto curled up beside his leaning tower of books, tail wrapped over his head as he half-slept. Luz sat across from him with a crystal ball. Naruto had explained it was basically Demon Realm internet, within seconds she was watching cat videos. Several quiet minutes passed before Luz stole a glance at him. His ears flicked, barely, but enough to give him away. She poked him. One eye slid open. She poked him again. "What?" he muttered. "Can I ask you something?" "You just did," he mumbled, eyes already closing. "Naruto, be serious." That got one ear to lift. Slowly, reluctantly, he shifted his head, giving her a small, tired but attentive look. The realization hit him, she had never really asked him to be serious before, that alone made him straighten a little. "All right," he said quietly, "I'm listening." Luz took a breath. "I don't know much about you," she admitted. "I know you weren't always a demon fox, and you aren't from here, but aside from that, and a few other things, I don't really know where you came from." Naruto's tail twitched lightly under his chin, he hesitated, thought. Then sighed. "What do you want to know?" he asked, cautious but open. "What was your world like?" Luz asked immediately. "You said it was kind of like mine and kind of like the Boiling Isles, but I can't really imagine that." He froze. Not visibly, but something inside him pulled taut. He hadn't expected that question. Memories flickered at the edges of his mind, messy, sharp ones he never invited in. He inhaled slowly, forcing them down, then forced himself to answer. "My world," he stopped, adjusted, tried again. "It had a lot of technology, way more than here." Another pause. "But it also had something like magic, only it wasn't witches using it. It was shinobi, ninjas." Luz gasped. "Wait, were you a ninja?" "No," he said quickly, too quickly, he winced. "I was too young to graduate before he cut himself off, jaw tightening. His ears folded back for a heartbeat before he pulled them forward again, steadying himself. He continued, slowly, careful. "People there were called humans, too. And the place looked kind of like an older version of Japan." His tail curled a little tighter around himself. "At least last I saw it, that's why I said it felt like a mix of your world and the Isles." He hesitated, this pause was heavier. "But, I don't," his voice thinned. "Really like talking about it, my old home. Thinking about it brings up stuff I still haven't dealt with." Luz's face softened instantly. "Oh, Naruto, I didn't mean," he lifted his tail slightly, cutting her off gently, not sharply. He didn't speak yet, he let the feeling in him settle, let the tightness ease, let the weight in the air deflate just a bit. Only then did he speak again. "It doesn't mean I don't want to talk about it with you," he said, softer than before. He hesitated again, this one not from pain, but from uncertainty. From choice. Just, small steps. His voice dropped another fraction. "You can ask me things whenever you want. I won't bite. A beat, but there are some things I won't answer yet. Another beat, or, might take time to." That was a big step for him. He knew it, he could feel it. And Luz seemed to recognize it too, her expression warmed in a way that made his ears twitch. After a moment, she asked her next question, more careful now. "So, why do you respect Amity so much? Back when we walked in, you were talking like she was an old friend." Naruto blinked, thrown off again, he gave a slow shrug. "I just know there's more to her than she lets anyone see," he said, another pause, another small breath. "Feels familiar, I guess." His eyes drifted to the books he'd grabbed earlier. "And after fighting her, I respect her, she is strong. Made me excited for a fight, not many witches can do that." He paused one last time. Tail tapping lightly on the desk. "I kinda want to see who she is without the mask." For some reason, Luz let out a long, relieved sigh. Even after a few seconds, Naruto was still mentally trying to figure out why Luz sighed like that. Relief, why relief? He didn't get long to dwell on it. A sharp voice cut through the quiet stacks. "What do you think you're doing?" Both he and Luz froze, then, without speaking, they drifted toward the sound, Naruto hopping onto her shoulder like it was second nature. Around the corner, soft giggles echoed, the two crept closer, and stopped dead. Naruto muttered under his breath, "Speak of the devil." There sat Amity Blight, surrounded by a small circle of young witches, holding a picture book. Light from the huge circular window washed over the room, catching on the pastel shelves and scattered witch toys. And Amity looked happy. Not polite happy, not smug "I'm better than you" happy. Actually happy, soft smile, relaxed shoulders, almost glowing in a way Naruto had never seen. Luz stared like she'd walked in on a unicorn doing taxes. Naruto, meanwhile, felt something click in his mind. This is her without the mask. Not the prodigy, not the Blight kid, just Amity. He felt something tug in his chest. Nope, not going there. Luz ducked behind a shelf, gesturing frantically. Naruto joined her, crouching low. "We're your friends and we want to help." Amity read with gentle emphasis. "I've never had real friends before," Otobin said. Luz whispered sharply, "This doesn't make any sense." Amity, reading to kids? Naruto raised a brow. What's so hard to believe? Luz looked at him like he made no sense. "Naruto, this is Amity. The same Amity who would have let me get dissected? The same Amity who acts like feelings are illegal? Her reading to kids is like you passing up food or a nap." Naruto gave a slow shrug, glancing at Amity again. "I did just say there was more to her." Luz paused, visibly processing that. A tiny O flickered across her face before she looked back to Amity again. They continued watching until Amity closed the book to applause. "She seems so nice," Luz whispered, genuinely surprised. Naruto didn't bother hiding his smirk. Children began leaving, thanking Miss Amity, one even hugging her leg with a gurgly, fanged voice. Amity softened completely at that, smiling warmly. Naruto caught himself watching that smile, for too long. Then Amity looked toward them. A blink, a double take, and just like that, the mask slammed back on. "Oh, it's you too." Naruto hopped up onto a short shelf as Luz rose beside him. Hey Amity," Luz gave a small, awkward wave. Amity's gaze shifted to her, then to Naruto, then back. "What are you doing here, human?" Luz bristled slightly but kept her tone polite. "Just, exploring. Didn't expect to see you here, though. Reading to kids and all, it's kind of cool." That clearly hit something. Amity's eyes narrowed. "It's extra credit," she said sharply. "And spying on me is a new low." "Spying," Luz sputtered. "We just walked in." Amity ignored that, her glare flicked to Naruto. "And you, keep your pet under control. I may respect you after our duel, but that doesn't change the fact that she is not a witch." Naruto's ears flattened slightly, unimpressed. "Luz, though," she stepped forward. "Okay, what is your problem?" Luz snapped. "I'm trying to be nice. I literally complimented you like 5 seconds ago. Can't witches just be nice to each other?" Amity stiffened, something like offense and panic flashing across her face before she buried it. "My problem is that ever since you showed up at Hexside, my status has been dropping. Some human shows up, pretends to be an abomination, gets a demon to fight for her. That wasn't my fault," Luz interjected. "And you act like you belong here," Amity finished coldly. "But you don't know magic, you don't understand it, you're just a human." Luz froze, the words hit her like a slap. Naruto eyed her carefully, ready to intervene, but Luz beat him to it. She stepped forward again, fire lighting behind her eyes. "Oh, I get it now," she said. "Miss Prodigy is scared." Amity's whole body tensed. "Be scared," she echoed flatly. "Yeah, scared because the moment someone doesn't fit into your perfect little magic world boxes, you don't know what to do. So you act like a jerk and call it status." Naruto let out a tiny snort laugh he tried, and failed, to hide. Luz kept going. "You say I don't belong here, fine, maybe I don't. But at least I'm not the one hiding behind a title because the real me is afraid to come out and play." Amity's mask cracked, a tiny, stunned flicker before she walled up again. Luz shook her head, turning away. Enjoy your extra credit. With that, she stormed off past the shelves, shoulders tight. Naruto watched her go. Then shot Amity a look that was half amused, half exasperated, before laughing his ass off. He was like a hyena, the laughter sounding throughout the whole building. Naruto's chuckles slowly faded, replaced by a slow, thoughtful grin. He tried, truly tried, to feel bad about laughing. He failed. I should probably go after Luz, yeah, probably. But Amity's face, that mixture of outrage, confusion, horror, ego cracking like cheap glass? Too priceless. He looked up just in time for Amity's icy glare to pin him. What? She snapped, are you laughing at? Naruto perked up, ears twitching once before he straightened. Welp, guess it's my turn. He hated getting personal. Hated poking at people's walls because it reminded him too much of when people poked at his. But Amity, with that suffocating mask she wore? He'd at least give her something to chew on. Before she could fire off anything else, he hopped off the shelf, turning into his human form mid-air. He landed lightly in front of her, hands sinking lazily into his pockets. His slight smirk tilted downward into something calmer but still annoyingly knowing. You, he finally answered. Amity's mask cracked again, irritation flaring. Excuse me? Naruto didn't miss a beat. You're idiotic, he said simply. For that argument. Her jaw dropped, just slightly, before she shut it hard enough to click. You may be a prodigy, Naruto continued, voice slow, almost bored, but wow, you're slow today. Must be because that mask is on too tight. Amity's temper flared immediately, you don't know anything about me, so mind your business. Naruto shook his head, expression shifting into that half-lidded, calculating calm he slipped into when he knew exactly what he was doing. That's not something I do, he said. Not when something's interesting enough. Amity sputtered at that, but Naruto pressed on. Luz didn't cause any of what you complained about. Not the status stuff, and status is boring anyway. He tilted his head. And you got her completely wrong. Amity froze, just for a heartbeat. The moment the words just a human echoed back at her in her own mind. Naruto repeated them purposefully. Just a human. Really? Amity swallowed, barely perceptible. Naruto stepped just a little closer. If you really respect me, he said quietly, then listen, Luz is not just anything, I thought our fight proved that. Another pause, Amity's eyes flickered, something behind them turning over, replaying everything that just happened. Her mask slid back into place like she was grabbing it with both hands. Fine, she muttered stiffly. I'll admit, I may have overreacted. But my point still stands, she hasn't proven anything. Naruto opened his mouth to reply. Mittens, stop being so rude to your friends, it's not nice. The voice boomed through the aisle. Amity combusted. Her mask shattered instantly into pure mortification, cheeks flaming pink as she jerked toward the voice. Naruto turned too, and blinked in mild surprise. Two witches walked over, about his age, maybe a little older, mirror images of each other. One boy, one girl. Dark green hair, golden eyes like Amity's, illusion track uniforms, smug grins that said they lived to cause chaos. Luz stood right beside them, laughing with them like they'd been friends for years. Wow, Naruto thought, she works fast. The boy, the one who'd shouted, snickered openly at Amity. Naruto looked back at her. She was steaming. Mittens, he prodded. Amity deflated in a single, miserable sigh. Those two are my siblings, Edric and Amira. A twitch. And that nickname is something my family insists on using, despite my objections. Naruto's lazy smirk widened. Good to know, Mittens. She went rigid. He took a step back, shrugging lightly. Well, Mittens, I should get going. Got some new friends to meet. He paused, mostly to see if she'd react. And yes, absolutely, that was the only reason. Her eye twitched, gloriously. But Naruto still had one last thing to say. "Think about it," he said, voice leveling out. "Just like I know there's more to you than your silly, I'm better act. You're not seeing the whole picture with Luz, she isn't a pushover." He let that hang in the air for a moment, just long enough. Then he shoved his hands deeper into his pockets, turned, and headed toward Luz and the twins. Behind him, he could feel Amity staring, silent, conflicted, somewhere between insulted, embarrassed, and thoughtful. Edric spoke the very second Naruto stepped back into the hallway. "So you're the human we've heard so much about." Luz blinked, pointing at herself. "Me, how, wait, heard from who? And, I hope the things you heard were good?" "And also," she added quickly, eyes bouncing between the two unfamiliar teens, "who, exactly are you?" Before either twin could answer, Naruto sighed and cut in, voice flat and bored as he dusted off his sleeves. "Amira and Edric, Amity's," he made a loose, lazy gesture, "I'm guessing older siblings?" Amira actually stopped mid-step, eyebrows lifting. "Whoa, yeah, that's right. How'd you figure that out already? We literally just met." Naruto shrugged, stuffing his hands into his hoodie pockets. "Amity told me." Amira's surprise melted into bright interest as she stepped closer, eyes narrowing in playful study. "And you must be the fox demon who guards the owl lady. Those ears," her gaze slid up to the furry orange tips poking from his head, "are adorable, can I?" Naruto blinked at her. Deadpan. That was not the reaction he expected, at all. His tail twitched behind him on instinct, betraying him with an annoyed flick. Edric, now as confused by his sister as Naruto was, cleared his throat and jumped back into the conversation. "Anyway, we heard how you embarrassed Amity at school," he said, pointing at Luz, "and how you," he gestured at Naruto, "beat her at the witch convention last week. Gotta say," his eyes dragged up and down Naruto's current human form, "without all the flipping and changing shape every 5 seconds, you don't look like much." Naruto wasn't sure if that was supposed to be a compliment or an insult. Probably both, he decided he didn't care. Amira smoothly slid back into the conversation, looping around Luz. "Amity rarely talks to us about anything, or, well," she lifted a hand in a vague wiggly motion, "she just doesn't talk to us at all. But lately the few little things she does mention, when she's annoyed enough, are you too. So she must really, really hate you." Luz actually scoffed, arms crossing fast and tight. "Honestly, I don't care what she thinks. If she wants to be all icy all the time, that's on her." Both twins grinned instantly, like that was exactly what they wanted to hear. Naruto watched them with half-lidded eyes. Amira clapped Luz on the shoulder. "That's the spirit," she cheered. "Don't waste your time on Mittens. She's been that way since her first year at Hex Side." Edric added with a sweeping bow, "We are way more fun anyway. So come on, keep up." And just like that, the twins darted off down the corridor, practically sparkling with chaotic energy. Naruto and Luz exchanged a look. Luz grinned, Naruto sighed. Then, with a soft puff of smoke and a shimmer of orange fur, he shifted back into a fox and leapt smoothly into Luz's hood, curling up behind her neck as she took off running after the twins. After Luz and Naruto sprinted after the twins through the library's endless shelves, things got chaotic. One harmless prank spiraled into a chain reaction, whispering scrolls echoing the wrong lines. Illusionary beasts jumping from pop-up books, enchanted dictionaries shouting definitions at people who definitely didn't ask. Luz was shining with laughter the whole time. It felt like she'd stepped into a storybook written purely for chaos. She loved the mischief, silly, harmless, alive. Naruto didn't even last a full minute. She heard him mumble something about not worth the energy, and by the time she turned, he was asleep against a stack of encyclopedias. Like the noise didn't even exist. She didn't get how he did that, part of her suspected he didn't either. They all got kicked out, obviously. Stern librarian glare included. But Luz couldn't stop smiling. It felt like a moment she'd want to remember. She was ready to head home until the twins stopped her, and told her something she didn't know. They'd heard rumors, that when the Wailing Star passed over the library, something magical happened. No one really knew what. Maybe the librarians knew, maybe they didn't, but the twins planned to sneak in tonight and see it for themselves. And they asked if she wanted to go. Luz said yes immediately, heart racing. Naruto didn't. He yawned, stretched like a cat, and waved her off with a lazy "tell me how it goes." He didn't even pretend he might change his mind. Luz knew him well enough by now to tell, it wasn't that he didn't care, he just didn't feel the need to walk more when he didn't have to. That was just him. Still, she wished for a second he'd come. Then reminded herself, adventure doesn't wait for someone to wake up from a nap. Night fell fast. Luz reached the giant locked library doors before the twins. She waited, humming, tapping her foot, pacing in little anxious circles. She wondered if she was too early. Or if she got the time wrong. Or if, "Sorry we're late," Amira said suddenly at her shoulder, making Luz jump. "Edric drank too much before we left." "Amira," Edric hissed, horrified. Luz blinked between them, still startled. "How do you guys just appear like that? You weren't even walking." "Stealth is a lifestyle," Amira said smoothly, then sighed dramatically. "Shame the fox guy didn't come, I still didn't get to touch those ears." Luz flushed in surprise. "Oh. Yeah, he, kinda ditched me for a nap." Edric rolled his eyes. "Figures, that guy radiates 'I'm doing the bare minimum today." Luz couldn't even defend him, that was accurate. Edric straightened, grin returning. "Anyway, ready to trade boredom for excitement?" She nodded quickly, "Yes please." He strode toward the massive doors with flourish. "So, how do we get in?" Luz asked. "That's just a giant lock, a very giant lock." "I always plan ahead," Edric declared proudly. "Some people say, I'm allergic to the rules." He produced a slip of paper covered in strange writing. Amira peeked over his shoulder. "And dairy." Edric's face fell apart. "Amira, why would you expose me like this?" Luz tried not to laugh. Amira plucked the paper from him and stepped to the lock. The page glowed softly, warming the air. She pressed it against the enormous keyhole, the glow brightened, then the paper dissolved into shimmering dust. The lock stretched and warped until the keyhole grew large enough to walk through. Luz whispered, "Okay, that's amazing," and followed them inside. The library felt different at night, hushed, dim, like the walls were holding their breath. Luz smiled despite herself. This was exactly the kind of magic she lived for. A streak of yellow light shot past the window, a small star with a crying face. The three froze. Was that the Wailing Star? Luz breathed. Edric gave a shaky nod. Maybe. I mean, it looked whaley, and star-like." "But nothing's happening," Amira said, scanning the lobby. Luz looked around too, until she froze. The books were glowing, soft, green, shimmering around the edges. She reached out, grabbed a random volume, and opened it. A screech tore through the air as illustrated birds burst from the page, flapping wildly around the room. Amira laughed, thrilled. Edric whispered, "No way, the Wailing Star must have brought the books to life." Luz closed the book, and the birds vanished instantly. The three exchanged slow, dawning grins. The magic-soaked chaos spread through the library faster than Luz expected. Once they realized every book had its own trick, she and the twins went wild with it. Harmless chaos, fun chaos. Open a nature book, a whole flock of tiny deer stampeded across the lobby. A winter guide, they discovered if you fanned the pages fast enough, the snowballs fired out like a minigun. Luz shrieked with laughter when Edric peppered Amira with a storm of snow, only for her to retaliate by opening a scuba diving guide and releasing a spray of neon jellyfish into his face. They even tried a fashion book at one point. A whirl of pages later, all three were wearing outfits that looked like they belonged on some magical teen drama: sparkly cloaks, dramatic collars, boots that jingled when they walked. Luz twirled once, loving every second of it. They darted from section to section, full of breathless wonder, every book a new door. Eventually, Edric and Amira sprinted past the dimly lit children's area, giggling as they chased a swarm of enchanted paper butterflies. Luz ducked behind a shelf, catching her breath, and that was when she noticed a soft glow on the reading table. Otobin the bookmaker, the same picture book Amity had read to the children. Drawn in by the glow, Luz picked it up. The moment it opened, Otobin rose from the pages, a pink, cartoonish rabbit man in patched shorts, humming as he threaded a needle. He looked up at her with big, hopeful eyes. "Are you my friend?" Luz froze, her fingers tightened on the book, friend. The word hit harder than it should have, because for just a second, all she could think of was Amity, cold, irritated, stiff, except when she was reading to kids. Except when she softened without noticing. Except when Naruto said there was more to her, something underneath. He saw something real in her, and, maybe I do too, was Amity like this book character, someone who hid behind routine and strict rules because she didn't know how to reach out, someone who wanted connection but didn't know how to ask? Luz stood there too long, lost in her thoughts. Luz. She jolted so hard she nearly dropped Otobin. At the doorway stood the twins, Edric with an eager wave, Amira with a knowing little smirk. "Look what we found," Amira said, opening a book titled Quacks Eat Snacks. A duck slid out of the pages as if swimming across water that wasn't there, its body rippling like a pond. It quacked cheerfully, circling their feet. Luz let out a delighted, "Ah," which ended the moment it got weird. Edric grabbed a pencil from his pocket. "Watch this." He doodled something on the open page. Luz couldn't see what, and the duck spasmed. "Oh no," Luz whispered. The twitching grew violent, then, with a disgusting schlorp, a pair of long humanoid legs burst out from its body, lifting it high above them. It wobbled on its new limbs, flapping its wings in existential terror. Amira clasped her hands, delighted, now he's extra cute. She shut the book, the creature vanished. Edric snorted with laughter. Luz shuddered, that was definitely something. Amira turned her attention back to Luz. "Now it's your turn." "My turn to what?" Luz backed away. "Write in a book, no way. I'm pretty sure defacing books is where I draw the line." Note, pun not intended, but I'm sticking with it. The twins paused, exchanged a quiet look. Then turned back to her with matching shrugs. "Then we won't make you," Amira said smoothly. Luz blinked, relieved, until Edric snatched Otobin right out of her hands. "That's why we'll do it for you." "Wait." Too late, Edric was already scribbling on the page. The book trembled, a pink-clawed hand began pushing its way out of the paper. "Oh, heckin' oh," Luz slammed the book shut on instinct, right in Edric's hands. All three froze. Luz stumbled backward, smiling tightly. "Sorry, reflex. Very strong reflex." Amira let out a breath. "It's fine, we're not here to vandalize everything. There are better things to explore." She gestured for Luz to follow and headed deeper into the stacks. Edric rolled his eyes and tossed the Otobin book over his shoulder. It hit the floor, landing face down, then slowly flipped itself open, pages glowing an eerie, unnatural pink. Unnoticed by all three of them, Amira ended up leading them to the romance section. Luz stared at it for a few seconds before speaking. "Boiling Isles romance, I didn't even think they had that sort of thing." She reached for a book, about to open it, but Edric laughed. "You read that sort of stuff?" Luz paused, unsure how to feel, before Amira gave him a playful whack on the shoulder. Edric let out an audible yelp. Amira shrugged apologetically. "He likes to tease. I like romance too, especially this one." She pulled a book titled The Lone Witch Secret Room from the shelf. Something clicked, the bookshelf groaned and shivered before sliding back, revealing a hidden room tucked away behind it. It was small but cozy, a single shelf, a desk, brick walls, dim purple lighting, and a soft pink carpet that made the space feel unexpectedly warm. Luz's eyes widened. She stepped in quickly, almost bouncing with excitement. "Your secret room is like the ultimate secret hideaway." Edric chuckled. "We don't hang out in a library, teacher, I'm in love with a dictionary." Amira laughed, joining in, "I'm studying the dork arts." She giggled, then lowered her voice, explaining to Luz that this was Amity's secret hideaway. Luz's excitement wavered, replaced by unease. She suggested leaving, but the twins quickly denied her. Amira explained their recent problem with Mittens. "She's gotten too full of herself. All that extra training, she thinks she's perfect now." Edric continued, "She keeps snitching on us for cutting class or when we're about to pull a huge prank on Hexside." Amira cut in, "She needs to learn not to mess with people like that. So, we're going to find her diary and post it all around school." The two high-fived, grinning. Luz's stomach sank. She liked the twins, thought they were fun, but this was too much. "That's taking it too far. Did you even try talking to her?" she asked. "Trying to reason with them." Amira shook her head, a frown forming. "She doesn't talk to us, remember? This is nothing more than family tough love. She's so cold these days, it's like living with an iceberg." Luz opened her mouth to argue but couldn't. She didn't know what to say as the twins began searching around the hideaway. She tried to tell them to stop, but they thought she was joking. Her attention was quickly diverted when she noticed a stack of Good Witch Azure books on a nearby shelf. She looked at volumes 1 through 4, and then eyed what she thought was the 5th, like the one she had. She grabbed it, looked at its cover, hand-drawn, a witch in white with hair like Azura's, though purple. Luz had never seen this version of Azura before, nor did she know they even had Azura books in the Boiling Isles. Curiosity prickled her as she opened it. A small version of Amity rose from the pages, and Luz gasped. The book spoke in Amity's voice, soft and unguarded, unlike any tone she had ever heard from the girl. "I saw that, human girl, and the fox again." Luz realized immediately, this was Amity's diary. She read on, "What Naruto said got to me, maybe I have been a bit cold to people, especially the human. But, for my dreams, for the sake of my family's status, it's who I have to be, no matter if the human is hurt." Luz's heart sank, she quickly closed the book. Naruto was right, there was more to Amity, but these were the girl's private thoughts. She had no right to read them. Before she could put the book back, Edric perked up beside her. "What you got there, Luz?" She hid the diary behind her. "It's nothing, we should get going, like I've been saying. That old diary probably isn't even in here." But the diary glowed blue and lifted from her hands. Luz lunged, trying to catch it, but it slipped through the air and landed in Amira's hands, the glow stopping. Amira opened it, and tiny Amity appeared again. "It's not fair, I'm the only one who knows Ed and Em aren't perfect. Why do they keep getting away with things?" Edric and Amira nodded. "This is it," Amira said. She then turned to Luz. "Why did you hide it from us?" Edric leaned in, "The way Amity treats people, how she treats you, it's terrible, why would you try to stop us?" Luz grabbed the diary. "I know Amity can be cold, very cold. But no one deserves to have their private thoughts exposed for all to see." "I'm putting it back," she said firmly, but Edric grabbed the other end. They both tugged, Amira pulling on Edric's waist to hold him steady. "She needs this," Edric said. "It's for her own good," Amira added. Luz grunted, pulling with all her strength, and accidentally yanked too hard. The diary slipped from their hands, pages scattering across the floor. The twins fell back, and Luz crouched, panic rising as she stared at the open pages. Each page spawned a different Amity, a fragment of her thoughts that should never have been heard aloud. Luz scrambled to gather them. I wish I had somewhere to go. Why does the human keep popping up everywhere I go? I had that weird dream about the fox boy again, it's starting to get on my nerves. Sorry I haven't written for a while. Wait, why am I apologizing? Pages repeated endlessly as Luz hurried to collect them. She grabbed the final one near the doorway, then froze. She saw shoes. Slowly looking up, she found Amity herself, furious. Really? Luz tried to explain, it's not what it looks like. Edric and Amira giggled behind her. Amity glared at them, you two are the worst. She snatched the diary from Luz, hurt in her voice. And you, I've been trying to figure out what Naruto sees in you. He said that I didn't see all of you, but whatever it is, I think he's wrong. Before Luz could respond, Amity stormed off. Luz stood frozen, processing the words. Edric and Amira laughed again. Mittens killed the fun, Amira said. Again, Edric added. Oh well, we're headed out to go goblin tipping, wanna come? Luz's anger flared, you're just gonna leave. Yeah, with you, Amira said, grabbing her wrist. Luz yanked her hand back, no, I'm not going with you guys, you really hurt her. You may be cool, but you shouldn't do that to your sister. I'm going after Mittens, Amity. And with that, Luz ran off, leaving the twins staring at the empty space where she had been. Edric's jaw hung slightly, Amira blinked, and for the first time, both looked a little lost. Amity finally stopped running when her legs gave out near a tall bookshelf. She leaned against it, breath sharp, face tight. Her mind wouldn't slow down. It kept looping everything that had just happened until it all tangled into a mess she couldn't untie. She'd come here because she saw the look on her siblings' faces before they left the house, that glint that always meant trouble. But this had gone somewhere she never expected. But what bothered her most wasn't even the diary. It was why she reacted that way to the human. Sure, the girl had her diary in her hands, but, no. This was more than that, and Naruto, that lazy, annoyingly perceptive fox, clearly had been wrong about her. No amount of newfound respect from their duel could change that. Then why did her stomach twist when she thought about Luz seeing her lose control like that? Seeing the version of herself she'd carefully built, the cold, steady, unshakable Amity Blight, crack, splinter, show the weakness underneath she refused to acknowledge even to herself. She hated it, hated that someone saw her like that. Hated that it was the human of all people. She straightened just enough to breathe, footsteps. Luz rounded the corner, eyes wide and full of worry, and something in Amity practically growled. Her emotions were too raw, too sharp, too real to rebuild the mask now. Amity, wait, first you embarrass me, Amity snapped. Then you want to be my friend, I don't get you. Please, Luz said softly, just listen to me. Amity's jaw clenched. She could almost see the diary in the girl's hands again, could imagine the pages open, her thoughts exposed, all of it becoming some ridiculous, humiliating spectacle, just go away before things somehow get worse. Luz opened her mouth. About to say something. Though with a sharp boom, both girls froze. Heavy footsteps echoed through the hall, slow, dragging, wrong. Wood scraped under something sharp. A claw traced across book spines as whatever it was pulled itself into view. It stepped into the lantern light. A beast, tall, hulking, its pink skin stretched too tight, veins dark like ink. Long arms, claws black as pitch. A book thudded inside its chest, half merged with its flesh, pages fluttering like a trapped heartbeat. Amity stared, icy fear crawling up her spine. She forced a spell circle into her palm, nothing. The light flickered out the moment the creature's shadow hit her. What? She didn't finish. A claw closed around her waist and yanked her off the ground. Luz shouted her name as Amity choked out a pained grunt, vision blurring as the beast sprinted away with her in its grip. She tried again, another spell circle, smaller, frantic, but she couldn't focus, not under its crushing hold. The thing dragged her into the children's corner, now lit by an eerie green glow. A massive book sat upright in the center of the room like some altar. Amity barely had time to gasp before the monster forced her against it, threading a needle and stabbing it into the page. String wrapped tight around her arm. A second later, her arm, flattened. Turned paper-thin, two-dimensional. Part of the book. A thick, cold dread settled in her chest. She couldn't escape, she could barely move. Her eyes darted to the creature's chest, the book embedded in its ribcage. Her book, the one she'd read to the children this morning. Her throat tightened. Otabin, she whispered. Is this what the Wailing Star did, are you? Her voice cracked as she stared at the twisted version of the gentle storybook character. This isn't you, what happened, who changed you? Otabin stared with hollow eyes, then stretched his mouth into a warped, toothy grin. Friends are what I've always sought, and now a friend my claws have caught. Her stomach dropped, nothing about this matched the story she grew up with. A rumbling shook the room, a purple cloud rushed in, swirling violently. Something landed inside it. A white witch's hat, a flowing purple and white gown, and an absolutely ridiculous pose. Amity blinked. Azura? The cloud faded. Close enough, Luz said, grinning like a complete dork. She flicked the drawn gown and held up Amity's diary like it was a magic tome. Hope it's drawn okay. What was this human doing? Before Amity could find her voice, Luz pointed at Otabin. Let her go. The monster didn't react, until it casually scribbled something into Amity's diary. It pulled a staff out of the illustration with a smug look. Oh, come on, Luz muttered, then charged with a full battle cry. She didn't even make it 10 feet. Otabin snatched the staff out of her hands, tossed it away like trash, and flicked the diary closed. Luz's drawn costume blinked out of existence. Okay, so that wasn't a great plan, Luz said, chuckling awkwardly as Otabin narrowed its eyes. But that's why you always have a backup. She hurled glowing paper at it, they flared in bright white light, blinding Otabin long enough for Luz to bolt out of the room. Amity stared, honestly stunned. Magic, real magic, cast by a human. Not only that, but used strategically, cleverly. Was Naruto right? Was there more to this human than she let herself see? Amity forced the thought away, she needed to escape. She need a hand, Middens. Her head snapped toward the doorway. Edric and Amira stood below her, grinning up with warm, guilty smiles she wasn't used to seeing. What are you two doing? Get out of here, Otabin has gone crazy. We know, Amira said, already reaching for her bound arm. Luz told us. Amity blinked, what? Edric helped unravel the threads pinning her in place. Yeah, she asked us for help rescuing you, actually asked nicely and everything. Amira smirked. And she was the one who came up with distracting the monster so we could get you loose. Amity landed hard on the floor, breath shaken, but relief trickling in. They helped her steady herself while Edric scratched the back of his neck. And, sorry, he said. For the diary. And your hideout, we shouldn't have, but don't be too mad at Luz, Em added quickly. She was trying to stop us when you walked in. Amity stared at them, really stared, her chest tightened. Luz, tried to stop you? Both twins nodded. And just like that, Amity felt something shift, small, quiet, dangerous. But there was no time to unpack it. Otabin's chasing her, Amity realized, eyes widening. We need to catch up, now. She sprinted out of the children's corner, the twins close behind. Luz sprinted down the hallway, heart slamming in her chest as Otabin thundered after her on all fours. Every footstep behind her sounded like a countdown to disaster. She was definitely starting to regret volunteering to distract the monster. Sure, it had seemed heroic at the time, but now all she could think was that she really hoped the twins had already saved Amity, because she was definitely going to need saving herself any second now. She risked a glance over her shoulder. Otobin roared, a guttural, shaking blast of sound that made her jolt upright in pure terror and run even faster. Then, a wave of abomination goo slammed into Otobin from the right, knocking him clean off his path and sending him tumbling across the floor. Luz skidded to a stop, staring wide-eyed at the sudden rescue. Before she could process it, Amity and the twins rushed into view. Luz exhaled in pure relief, slumping a little. "Oh, thank goodness you're okay," Amity crossed her arms, more shaken than she wanted to show. "What were you thinking, human?" "I wasn't," Luz admitted, hands flailing. "I mean, did you see me?" She threw her head back and recreated her earlier battle cry, a ridiculous, over-the-top wail that sent the twins into laughter. Even Amity let out a small, startled chuckle, something Luz had never seen from her before. But the moment shattered instantly. Otobin rose again with a feral shriek. He charged them, and Luz froze, certain she was about to get flattened. But suddenly Amity slid in front of her, drawing a glowing spell circle. A wall of abomination goo erupted upward, enclosing them in a thick barrier. The monster slammed against it instantly, making Amity brace herself with both hands as the force rattled through her entire body. Edric paled. Amity, plan, what do we do?" Luz scrambled, scanning the floor until she snatched up a fallen book. A thought sparked. "Wait, I've got it." She held the book up triumphantly. "We read it a bedtime story." The twins blinked. Then the idea clicked, and identical wicked grins spread across their faces. Otobin blasted through the abomination wall, sending Amity tumbling back. He stomped forward, a barrage of snowballs hammered him from the side. Amity stared in confusion as she turned and saw the twins furiously flipping through two books that summoned an endless snowball machine gun barrage. It didn't hurt Otobin, but it kept him sliding backward under the non-stop assault. Behind them, Luz cracked open a demon's book. A huge worm-like demon burst forward from the pages, lunging and slamming Otobin even further back as it coiled and snapped. Amity pushed herself up, breath catching. Luz and the twins were holding the monster at bay with pure creativity and chaos. It was incredible, but unsustainable. Then she saw it. Her diary, still clutched in Otobin's massive hand. And the book embedded in his chest, open to the original illustration of Otobin, though now smeared with claw marks and angry scribbles that had twisted him into a monster. Amity steadied her breathing. She knew exactly what she had to do. She sprinted forward, weaving between the worm demon strikes and the blizzard of snowballs. At the last second she slid under Otobin's legs, snatching her diary back without a single scratch. She flipped it open without hesitation. Otobin had been twisted by the story forced onto him, but she could fix it, she could erase the wrong that had been done. The wailing stone pulsed, light shimmered across the diary, and an eraser materialized in her hand. Amity smiled. "Guys, stop the fire, I need an opening." The twins hesitated, Luz winced, but they trusted her. They snapped their books shut, and the attacks vanished. Otobin turned toward Amity. Snarling, raising his claws, but she didn't stop. She ran straight at him, jumped, and with one clean swipe she erased the ink that had corrupted his picture. Her feet hit the ground, and instantly the entire library exploded in a brilliant flash of green. The light filled everything, swallowing sound and shape for long, blinding seconds. Then it faded. The book lay open on the floor, harmless. And standing calmly on top of it, was the real Otobin. Amity let out a breathless, relieved smile. Morning light spilled gently over the front steps of the library, painting long golden lines across the stone. Amity stood with Luz just outside the doors, arms tucked behind her back as she quietly surveyed the peaceful dawn. The stillness almost felt unreal after the chaos of the night. At least they'd managed to clean everything before leaving. The last thing she needed was to be banned from one of the only places she actually enjoyed being in. Edric and Amira had already headed home. She was definitely going to have a talk with them later, an honest one. About tonight, about everything, but for now, she could breathe. Her thoughts drifted naturally, annoyingly, toward the girl standing beside her. The human, no, Luz, was so much more than she'd assumed. Before tonight, she'd been a nuisance, an interruption to Amity's carefully constructed world. But now she was more. Braver, stranger. Kinder, infuriating in a way Amity didn't know how to categorize. And that odd magic she'd used, Amity still wasn't sure what to make of it. Naruto had been right about Luz. Amity found herself placing a little more respect in him for that. But then the question crept in, what now? Should this be the end? Should she return to being cold, distant, untouchable, the prodigy everyone expected her to be? Yes, of course, that was who she was. Who she needed to be. Amity turned, ready to walk away, ready to bury everything that had happened tonight deep where it could never bother her again. But Luz spoke up. What an adventure, huh? She said awkwardly, rubbing her arm. Thanks for helping clean up. Amity stopped. Of course Luz wouldn't make this simple. This never happened, she said, brushing it off with practiced sharpness. She stepped away again. Wait. Amity paused mid-step, jaw tightening, then turned back to Luz. Luz took a deep breath, clearly just as confused as Amity felt, then stepped forward. I know it doesn't make up for, well, anything. Reading your diary, embarrassing you at school, or being just a human. She winced at her own words. But, would you want to borrow this? She held out a book. The Good Witch Azura, Volume 5, the one volume Amity didn't have yet. Amity froze, eyes widening before she could stop herself. I noticed you only had up to 4, Luz added gently. Amity blinked, stunned, then slowly took the book, thank you. She turned to leave again. She almost made it down the steps, but something twisted in her chest. No, she couldn't keep doing this. Leaving things broken. Leaving things unsaid, turning everything complicated into something cold and distant. Not with someone who'd proven so much last night. She turned back. I still don't get you, who, she stopped, correcting herself. I mean, Luz. Luz blinked in surprise. You're weird, and dangerous, and very annoying to deal with. Amity's tone was flat, but there was no venom behind it, only honesty. But you're unpredictable. And maybe that's what Naruto sees that I didn't. She swallowed, the next words harder than she expected. Either way, you proved I was wrong about you. And I'm sorry for treating you as just a human, because you're not. She turned sharply after that, forcing herself not to look back as she walked away. Left alone on the steps, Luz watched her go, clutching the Azura book lightly to her chest. Amity's words echoed in her mind, warm and heavy and confusing in all the best ways. There was more to her. More than people saw, more than she'd ever been told she could be. And maybe someone else was finally starting to see it too. That's it for today. I hope you liked the video. Please like and subscribe, and comment ideas if you can, and maybe you could share this with your friends, because you never know, they might like what ifs too. So without further ado, All Kage, out.